Some people love to talk about what they will do. Others stay quiet and let the world see what they have done. The difference between the two, one leaves behind echoes, the other leaves behind proof. Remember this, success doesn't shout, it whispers through results. We live in a world full of noise. Everyone is trying to be seen, to be heard, to show off before they've even built something real. But here's the truth. Words may excite people for a moment, but results inspire people forever. When you commit yourself to the grind, when you stay disciplined while others waste time bragging, your work speaks volumes without you having to say a single word. Success doesn't need an introduction. It doesn't need validation. It introduces itself every time you walk into a room with the results of your effort. Think about it. The loudest talkers often have the least to show. But the silent workers, the ones who focus, sacrifice, and stay consistent, those are the ones whose success makes people stop, look, and listen. Let your achievements tell your story. Let your discipline write your reputation. Let your results silence the doubters, the critics, and even the noise in your own head. You don't need to prove yourself with speeches, because success is the ultimate proof. They say silence is golden, but most people don't really understand why. Silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of focus. When you learn to be comfortable in the quiet, you discover the power that most people overlook. Noise is cheap. Anybody can talk big. Anybody can post about their dreams. But silence, that's discipline. Silence is a contract you make with yourself where you choose to let your actions do all the explaining. There's a story about a young man who dreamed of being a great architect. Every time he talked with his friends, he bragged about the buildings he was going to design, the cities he was going to transform, and how famous his name would become. But when people visited him years later, they didn't see blueprints, they didn't see buildings, they didn't see progress. They only saw a man with the same story. Then there was another young man in that same neighborhood. He didn't talk much. In fact, he rarely spoke about his goals, but years later, the city stood filled with his designs, his name engraved in concrete, his legacy alive. His silence wasn't weakness, his silence was his weapon. That's the truth. Silence is power, real power, because when you work in silence, no one sees your process, but everyone feels your progress. Nobody can interfere, nobody can sabotage, nobody can steal an idea you never spoke out loud. The quiet protects your vision. Think about how the sun rises. The sun doesn't scream, it doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It just climbs, quietly, slowly. But when it's there, when it's fully risen, the whole world feels its light. That's what real success looks like. It doesn't need to shout. It simply shines. Some people waste their energy on proving themselves with words. They want applause before the work is even done. They want recognition before they planted the seeds. But silence teaches you patience. Silence forces you to trust the process, even when nobody else understands it. When you can stay quiet and focused, you are training yourself to find strength not in validation, but in discipline. Here's a quote to remember. A lion doesn't have to tell you it's a lion. When it roars, the jungle already knows. That's the same with success. When you move in silence and let your results speak, the world recognizes your power without you saying a word. Now, let's go deeper into something that most people overlook, the relationship between work and words. This is where the game changes. Words are cheap, but work is priceless. Talking about what you want is easy. Doing the work when nobody's watching, when you're tired, when you've got excuses lined up, that's the difference. There's a famous parable about two farmers. The first farmer talked day and night about the great harvest he was going to have. He bragged about how his fields would be bigger than anyone else's, how his crops would be the envy of the village. But when planting season came, he didn't put in the work. He skipped days, he took shortcuts. And when harvest season arrived, his land was empty. The second farmer didn't talk much. He was up before the sun, working the soil, planting seeds, watering his crops, and protecting them through storms. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, but when harvest season came, his land overflowed. His work made the noise. His silence paid off. That's how life works. Your words are like promises, but your work is the proof. In the real world, proof is what people respect. Nobody remembers the promises that never turned into reality. They remember what you actually built, what you left behind, the results they can see and feel. Sometimes people use words as a shield. They talk big because deep down they know they're not ready to put in the grind. Words become their escape. But the ones who win understand that work is louder than any speech. Work becomes your voice. Work becomes your introduction. Work becomes your reputation. Think about this. The greatest legacies in history weren't built on noise. They were built on consistent, disciplined work. Buildings that stand for centuries, movements that changed the world, innovations that reshaped how we live. All of them started in silence with someone grinding behind closed doors. The world didn't clap for them while they were building. The applause came later, after the work spoke for itself. When you focus on work over words, you also protect yourself from disappointment. Because here's the truth. When you talk too much about your goals, you give people permission to doubt you, criticize you, or even steal your ideas. But when you keep your mouth shut and your head down, nobody knows what's coming, and when it arrives, it's undeniable. There's an old saying, don't tell people your plans, show them your results. That's the blueprint for anybody who wants to win. Every time you resist the urge to talk and instead double down on the grind, you're building a foundation that no opinion, no doubt, no noise can shake. Silence isn't weakness. Silence is focus. Silence is choosing to spend your energy where it matters most, on the work. And the work will always pay you back, because when the results are undeniable, even your enemies have to respect it. Look at the way nature works. Trees don't grow overnight. You don't hear them making noise while they're sprouting roots underground. But once they've grown, once they've reached the sky, once they've produced fruit and shade, the world can't ignore them. That's how your dreams grow. Quietly, patiently, until one day they're too big to be overlooked. And let's be real, it's not easy to stay silent when everybody else is loud. Social media, society, even your own circle, they'll push you to announce, to brag, to show progress before it's time. But the wise know better. The wise understand that the world doesn't need another speech. It needs another example. The greatest influence you can ever have is not in what you say, but in what you show. So when people doubt you, don't argue. When they underestimate you, don't explain. When they don't believe in you, don't waste your breath trying to convince them. Just work. Work until the results are so clear they can't deny them. Work until the noise of your success drowns out every whisper of doubt. Work until you no longer have to introduce yourself, because your achievements already did the talking. As one wise saying goes, work hard in silence. Let your success make the noise. That's not just a quote. It's a lifestyle. It's a mindset. It's the discipline that separates dreamers from doers. There's a point in life where you realize words don't carry as much weight as results. You can tell the world you're disciplined. You can tell the world you're focused. You can tell the world you're on the rise. But if there's nothing to back it up, it's just noise. Results, on the other hand, don't need a stage. They don't need applause. They don't need an introduction. Results announce themselves every time they appear. Imagine walking into a room and saying, I'm the hardest worker here. Some people might nod, others might roll their eyes, and a few might even laugh. But if you walk into that same room and your achievements are on the wall, your consistency is on record, and your work ethic is already known, you don't have to say a word. People already know who you are. That's the power of results. They talk louder than any voice could. There's a story of a boxer who came from nothing. In the early days of his career, nobody believed he would make it far. Reporters didn't cover his fights, promoters overlooked him, and critics wrote him off. He didn't argue back. He didn't spend his time clapping at the doubters. Instead, he trained harder than anyone else. He ran miles when the cameras weren't rolling. He studied tapes when everyone else was out celebrating. And when fight night came, his fist told the story. Victory after victory, knockout after knockout, until the same reporters who once ignored him now couldn't wait to interview him. That's what results do. They change the conversation without you saying a single thing. Results carry proof. They're undeniable. A quote to live by says, don't tell people your plans, show them your results. Because results don't lie. You can fake confidence, you can fake words, you can fake an image, but you can't fake consistency, you can't fake discipline, and you can't fake success when it's earned. The mistake people make is thinking they need to explain themselves. They waste energy defending their dreams to people who don't even believe in themselves. But the truth is, you don't owe explanations. You owe yourself execution. Let your results speak for you. Because the same people who doubted you will be the same people trying to attach themselves to you once you've made it. And you'll notice when results start talking, even your silence gets respected. But let's go deeper. Results aren't just about proving people wrong. They're about proving yourself right. When you stay committed to your vision long enough for the results to show, it confirms that your discipline, your patience, and your sacrifices were worth it. That confidence is more valuable than any applause. Now let's shift into something bigger than results. Because while results talk, legacy whispers for generations. And that's the real measure, what you leave behind when the noise dies down. Noise is temporary. Legacy is forever. Think about the difference between a firework and a star. A firework explodes loud, bright, and captures everyone's attention for a moment. But it fades. A star, though, burns quietly for millions of years, giving light, giving direction, even when no one is looking up. That's the difference between chasing noise and building legacy. Noise is posting every win just to get validation. Legacy is stacking wins until the impact speaks for itself. Noise is chasing clout, wanting to be seen. Legacy is chasing purpose, wanting to leave something behind that can't be erased. There's a story of two businessmen. One was obsessed with fame. He bought expensive cars, threw big parties, made sure his name was in every headline. The other kept his head down, invested wisely, mentored young people, built businesses that created opportunities long after he was gone. Years later, when the first man's money dried up, so did his relevance. Nobody spoke his name anymore. But the second man, his buildings, his scholarships, his companies kept speaking for him long after his voice went silent. That's the power of legacy. A powerful line to remember is, Wealth is not measured by what you can spend today, but by what you can leave behind tomorrow. Legacy isn't about money alone. It's about impact. It's about what you build that continues to grow even when you're not there to water it. Legacy is also tied to intention. Ask yourself, why am I grinding? Is it just for validation, or is it to create something that outlives me? Because if it's just for validation, the moment people stop clapping, you'll lose motivation. But if it's for legacy, you'll keep going whether people notice or not. You'll keep building because you know what you're leaving behind matters more than any applause. And here's the truth. Legacy doesn't happen by accident. It's built brick by brick, decision by decision. Every disciplined day adds to your legacy. Every sacrifice contributes to the story you're writing. Legacy is the sum of all your consistent actions, not just the highlights. Look at nature again. A tree doesn't eat its own fruit. It grows fruit for others. That's legacy. What are you creating that others can eat from, learn from, or grow from? Legacy is about more than success. It's about significance. Some people confuse noise with legacy. They think being loud will make them remembered, but loud fades. What lasts is impact. Nobody remembers the people who talk the most. They remember the ones who built the most, gave the most, inspired the most. So ask yourself, when it's all said and done, what will people say about you? Will they remember the noise you made or the difference you made? Will they scroll past your posts and forget? Or will they tell stories about how your work changed their lives? That's the real measure of a life well lived. Legacy is not about how many people know your name. It's about how many lives you've touched, how many doors you've opened, how many seeds you've planted. Legacy is when the results you work for continue to inspire, continue to provide, continue to guide, even when you're not here. So let your results talk, but let your legacy last. Don't chase the noise, because noise dies out. Build something that speaks for you when you're gone. Build something so strong that generations after you can still hear your voice in the work you left behind. Because at the end of the day, success speaks louder than words, but legacy speaks louder than success. So the next time you feel the urge to announce your dreams to the world, pause. Instead, channel that energy into your work. Keep grinding in silence, keep moving with purpose, and let your results announce you louder than words ever could. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't remember promises, it remembers proof. And nothing speaks louder than success.